and welcome to Fraud Busting Neofraus podcast. It is the only podcast for female fraud professionals and their allies who want to stay on top of the fraud awareness spectrum in order to thrive professionally while maximizing their happiness and having the courage to create the life they love. Thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Fraud Busting Neofraus podcast. I'm Olga, and I'll be your host today. For today's episode, we have a special guest. This is Kiley Woodland, and she will be sharing with the audience her unique and very powerful story. But without further ado, I'd like to give Kylie the floor to quickly introduce herself. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Olga. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate you agreeing to be interviewed today. Could you take a moment and kind of introduce yourself to the audience and telling them a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a singer-songwriter and recording artist. And let's see, I initially had put together like the project of my dreams, and we were touring, and we even got a gig opening for Kiss. And then I took a commonly prescribed antibiotic that is actually one of the most common antibiotics that's on the market today. And shortly after that, I became what they call being floxed, and it's called fluoroquinolone toxicity, and it put me in a wheelchair. So my story has shifted from performer on stage to recovering from this and just getting my ability to walk back and, do all the simple things like drinking out of a cup of water again and being able to care for myself. And ultimately, my goal is to be performing on stages and stadiums worldwide with my music. And the journey right now is all about getting there.
Thank you so much for this introduction and very, very courageous story. You are just an amazing woman and human being, being able to go through this difficulty in life, but then not losing this strength and this high spirit in yourself. Could you share a little bit with the audience how are you able to do that, to achieve that? That's just incredible.
That's a good question. I think ultimately when I was facing like the end of everything as I knew it, and the end of my life, it felt like I faced the question of, do I even want to continue? And when I thought about it and prayed and, sat with myself, because I couldn't do anything after, I was bedridden, except use my mind. I came to the conclusion that, yes, I do want to continue forward. And so what does that look like? I think it can look like a lot of different things for people, depending on what your state of being is. But somewhere along the way, I started to feel like, if I had had this information, what I know now, years prior, and if I had seen a video like some of the ones that I share online about fluoroquinolone toxicity and this commonly prescribed antibiotic, my life would look completely different right now. So I think all of that coupled together just really brought me to this place of purpose and digging deep for, how can I pay this forward in the worst time in my life? And I just kind of decided that I was going to move forward with it. And I wasn't going to take like the experience itself and let it demoralize me and crush me. You know, I certainly have had days, many days, where I feel completely demoralized and crushed by this. But I think the important thing to understand is that when you're going through hard times, there is an end date. And even if you can't see what that end date is, that, you know, at some point you're going to be looking back on this experience and it's going to be in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you can have that perspective when you're going through hard times,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's the hardest thing that you have ever gone through,
Mm-hmm.
that can be a little bit of a saving grace.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes we're so deluded into just what is happening right now,
Mm-hmm.
and being so demoralized by that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when in reality, the bigger picture is, you know, we have these beautiful long lives to lead with so much purpose, and all of us come here with something unique
Mm-hmm.
and beautiful to share with the world.
Mm-hmm.
So this experience has really helped me to kind of uncover that in a really simple way by stripping every single thing in my life away. Even the stuff that I thought was important,
Mm-hmm.
completely was stripped of.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was able to simplify in that and just accept what was, it's brought me to amazing people like yourself and, you know, just created so much abundance and joy even through the hardship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you so much for this response. It's definitely amazingly powerful. I love how you said, you know, the advising the women out there and people generally out there being in difficult situations and being courageous to overcome those. I just love the way how you structured your words. I'm sure the listeners will be enjoying listening to your advice and your stories as well. Thank you so much. I'm curious to ask a question here. Has your experience influenced your songwriting in some way, or have you written any powerful songs after going through what you've been through, the difficulty?
Absolutely, yeah, it's definitely changed a lot of our songwriting, and in a sense it hasn't changed it at all, but it also has. So as creators, there are so many different areas that we indulge in in terms of our art, but there are some really cool songs that we're working on right now in the studio that I'm so excited. I'm still currently going through the antibiotic poisoning and healing from it, and I'm not fully healed yet, but you know, the days now look more like, you know, I can exist a little bit more normally, and I can cook and be in the studio at times, and I still have to take breaks and everything, but I'm not, you know, couch bound 24 hours a day anymore. But that being said, we are working on some music right now that I am so excited about, and it really feels like it touches into like the resiliency of being a human. And we actually have a song right now that we were just recording yesterday called Someday the World Will See. And I'm particularly excited about this one because it really touches on, you know, when you realize that your dreams may never come to fruition because life as you know it has ended. And so it's about this like acceptance. If you were never able to fulfill your dreams and be the person that you wanted to, you know, will you be okay with that? Will you be at peace? And so, yeah, it definitely has inspired a lot. And I'm very, you know, as a creator, I can always justify, oh, of course I was supposed to go through X, Y, and Z because look at the art that came from it. But I think it's part of the coping mechanism. So.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing the details about the upcoming new song. and other songs. That's impressive. I would definitely like to hear them. Maybe if you like, we could do a comeback interview.
I would love that.
Sharing more details later on about those songs, and maybe playing them or providing a link to the audiences to be able to listen. That's
Absolutely.
definitely super powerful, and I'm sure the audience will enjoy hearing about your way, to navigate through those roads of the life that is offering anyone, in particularly in your example, not necessarily every time positive, but trying to turn those into positive perspective and moving forward is just so impressive, and definitely incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for sharing this. I would like to ask you finally, any particular advice that you would like to provide to women out there, but also people in general, in order for them to maybe have some personal strategies or tools how to navigate through difficulties and remaining resilient and positive, and having a positive outlook, basically, no matter what.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things this experience has highlighted for me is that, generally speaking, the missed opportunities in life will always feel worse than failure. And, what is failure at the end of the day? It's really just another way that you learned how to not do something, or to get the tools that you needed to do something better. Mm-hmm. So I think about death a lot, and I think it's a topic that as a society we can explore a lot more, and that it's healthy to think about death because it's the one thing we all have in common, right? Mm-hmm. The one thing we have in common is we are all gonna die. Right? So that motivates me. It really motivates me a lot to, sure, get through hard times and everything, and it, can be helpful to be like, do I want to move on from this? Yes, I do. This is something that happened to me, but it doesn't have to become my story of why I can no longer do something. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So for me, that motivator of death is, it really pulls me along. And I think if we can all have an honest look at the fact of, imagine yourself when you're 80 or 90 years old. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are you going to be saying then? Is it going to be like, I'm really glad I cared so much about what everybody thought of me? Mm-hmm. Probably not. You're probably going to have, certain regrets and feelings of, I wish I went for it, or I wish I was my full self, or I wish I was totally cringe and I did the thing that I wanted to do, So I think if you can just start there, put yourself in that frame of mind and have the perspective of, you're at the end of your life. What do you care about? The only thing that we leave Earth with is how we made people feel mm-hmm. during our time here. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So if you have the kind of, cornerstones of what being a good human is, are you kind? Are you helpful? Are you happy? Do you share that with other people? Do you inspire others? And I think if you can just have a moment to get quiet, silence the outside noise, and really share that, whatever that is, that translation. For me, it's music. For me, it's writing. I love art, and I feel like everyone's an artist. You just have to tap into, whatever your art form is. Mm-hmm. but to go for it and to not wait for some catastrophic event in your life to remind you that life is so short. It's so unbelievably short here. It's like a blimp that we have here. You know, so how are you going to best use it? And yeah, this, you know, this experience has taught me so much. But that piece of it, of what are you going to do right now with the time that you have left? And to really like ask yourself that question, to get honest with yourself. And I think that's where a lot of the magic lies. And ultimately, in our society, we are taught to really be distracted, like constantly. We have our phones, we have these devices that we're always reachable at. We have all this stimulus. And none of it really answers the question of, why are you here? What is your purpose? But we all have that inside of us right now. We all have that power. Anyone who, you know, who is listening to this also has some magical gift that it is your responsibility to unlock. And I would say that in terms of difficult times and things that happen to us that are not necessarily, quote, fair, is that it may not be your fault that it happened to you, but it is your responsibility to heal, whatever that pertains to. And aside from that, I would say I would hope for everyone to research what fluoroquinolone antibiotics are. The street names that you may know of are called Cipro, Avalox, Levaquin. They're very commonly prescribed for all sorts of minor issues. But the FDA, it does in fact say that these drugs should be a last line drug and only prescribed for life and death situation. So this, what happened to me was not a life and death situation, and I likely could have gotten a lot of other drugs. But since this is handed out like candy, it is something that really calls for everyone to learn how to become their own best advocate. And I think that's really important in life, because I was someone who grew up in a very holistic household. I took antibiotics maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire life. And after taking this antibiotic, it put me in a wheelchair, which is, I never even heard of something like this before. I mean, did you? I didn't even know this was possible. So I find it's really important to educate yourself, because a doctor will not likely tell this to you. And it's important to know the risks before you get into a situation where you may need something like this.
Wow. Thank you so much for everything, you know, your advice to the audience, you know, learning and researching on the medications that are being prescribed so commonly, but also your advice on how to be focused on the main, you know, things in life and not being distracted. You put it so wonderfully. I have no words. I am really grateful to you. I'm sure the audience will enjoy listening, but not only that, but also taking your advice into practice. And I hope it will help a lot of people. I am really grateful. Thanks so much for being our special guest today. And thanks everyone for listening. Stay healthy and happy.